Right.
And here we go. Welcome back, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. This is kind of a special edition of the Blind Pig. We're going to go ahead and do a mock draft simulation. We're going to simulate all 8 picks. Well, we're going to pick all 8 picks, but we're going to simulate an entire draft to kind of give us an idea of what might actually be available. Of course, I have to throw a little bit of a wrench in there, something to talk about. And this is going to, I hope this doesn't go way too long, but Alex Smith took yet another platform that he decided to come back and fire back at the team about how he didn't feel like he was welcome back and patronized, and even went as far to say the coaching staff did what they could do to break him and they did not want to give him a shot on the field. Does that change your all's opinion of Alex Smith and his comeback?
Well, I don't know if it was done a while ago and the media just chose to report it now.
None of this changes my opinion of Alex, the player, or his comeback. I'll have to admit it has changed my opinion of him a little bit in how he handles his business, his personal business. I don't think he needed to do all of this. I think he proved his point on the field. I think he became almost a hero beyond sports. And this, unfortunately, just sort of sets him up. I mean, it sounded whiny to me. I'm not sure exactly the right word, but this was a guy who, I mean, he had it all. He's like a war hero practically, right? They were comparing him to the guys coming back from Afghanistan with one leg. And I'm not sure why he did this. I know, I'm sorry I'm rambling on about this, but I was thinking about this yesterday. I know that part of what makes these guys so damn good at what they do is that they just feel it. It's visceral. This is what got him there. And he wasn't able to turn it off. And I can't judge him too hard for that, but it did let me down a bit.
I said this on Twitter, right after the Sports Illustrated story came out. And my comment was, imagine the story that would have been written if Rivera and company had thrust him right out there, and then he had suffered another, horrific traumatic injury, maybe even, putting his leg at risk or his life at risk again. Imagine the story that would be. And I think the team did what was reasonable and was right. And no one's really talked about the fact that, when he did get out there, I don't know about you guys, but to me, he could barely play. That's how I felt. And I was rooting for him like any Redskins fan would be. But I was holding my breath the whole time. And then after I got over holding my breath, I was mostly just thinking, God, he can barely play. He can barely move. He can barely throw. And I think that's where Rivera and Turner's, that should be their priority, is who can play the position best currently. And I don't think that was Alex Smith. I know he went 5-1, but we've seen that before with Alex, where he somehow manages to not make enough mistakes to cost us a game. But I think the defense mostly carried us in those games.
I'm going to be honest. I had an instant, almost visceral reaction to this because I kind of read between the lines. John, you mentioned we went 5-1. I just want to point out one of those games was against San Fran. I think he had 9 pass attempts and he left in the second quarter because he couldn't move. He didn't win that game. We had 2 defensive touchdowns. We outscored San Fran on the defense alone. Yeah, another game was against Philly. Game. Yep, the Chase Young game. And another game was against Philly. And in that game, they did everything they could possibly do to hand us that football game. And I'll take it. We did enough to win the football game, but I don't think Alex Smith was anything about that. I find it ironic that he even mentioned in the piece that he told his friends he would have been willing to be released. But everybody that knows anything about the salary cap knows if we had cut him, it would have cost something like $42 million against the cap. It just was not fiscally possible. So if he was that serious about it, why didn't he renegotiate his contract down? And then to go further, it's not beyond me to understand. He was at a private island resort in Maui when he's doing this contract. Not to sound completely petty, but it's a little ironic that he just cashed a $24 million check from us on this awesome vacation. And he's talking about how the team didn't support him. I loved everything he did. The comeback was, borderline Hall of Fame-ish because he did something that nobody else has ever done before. But to then come out and go against the team and question why they pushed him harder than they ever pushed anybody, probably because nobody had ever done it. So they needed to make sure that he was going to be able to handle everything that was going to come at him. I think it was a little unfair. I think it was a lot unfair. You know, I wish he would have kind of just taken his comeback and said, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger man like I was in Kansas City and in San Francisco, and I'm gonna be the guy, and I'm gonna go on to become a coach or a broadcaster or one of another 100 things he could do with the NFL.
My first thought was, who pushed him? Media is always looking for a story. Not to say that the media did that. Maybe he reached out and said, hey, I'd like to tell my side of things. I mean, I haven't seen that reported. Granted, I haven't been looking for it, right? I've read it. I haven't seen him on camera or heard his words. So context is kind of important. And I learned a long time ago that what I read is questionable, right? I'm old enough, I swapped letters with my girlfriend from college. And I can tell you what, she misread a whole lot of what I wrote a lot of times. I know what I meant.
Sure, she did.
And, you know, it's just, the other thing I think about is, this guy's in his late 30s and everything he's ever known is done. He's done. And he didn't finish the way he wanted to finish. And I can only think about how I would feel in those shoes. I have no clue, right? I'm 15 years older than that, and I'm still working away at my chosen profession. And I've got another 10 years or 15 years before I quit, assuming something bizarre doesn't happen. I'm sure that the emotions are kind of raging, and yeah, I wish he'd been the bigger man at this particular instance, but you know, it was probably easier to be the bigger man when you're leaving San Francisco and you know, you got a chance in Kansas City, and you're leaving Kansas City and you know, you got a chance in Washington. Now there's no chance. He's never playing again.
It is kind of ironic that he wasn't bitter when Colin Kaepernick went to a Super Bowl instead of him. And he wasn't bitter when he was asked after his best career season to take a seat and train Patrick Mahomes to be his replacement. It's just ironic to me that that's what he would be bitter about.
I would bet you he was bitter in both of those positions, John, but he was looking down the road and he wanted a job somewhere else. And we know what the NFL thinks of guys that rock the boat.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
I mean,
All right, well, let's not push this down the road any further. I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off, Paul?
No, you're good.
Okay. So to the task at hand, I'll go ahead and launch the screen here. We can take a look and get this going as my chickens go crazy and my child screams incessantly. So, John, before we get this kicked off, let's see, what are your top 3 targets at 19?
Oh, I think it has to be linebacker, offensive tackle, and best player available. If somebody amazing drops to us, where even though that's not my inclination, it's something we got to consider, because with all the quarterbacks being taken early, and I think a lot of tackles are going to be taken early, we could see somebody that we're just not anticipating at all drop to us. And I'm really sold on a linebacker or offensive tackle early, but got to consider a value there if somebody amazing drops to us.
Any particular names?
I think some of the position groups that I think could drop to us. I think a top cornerback like Farley or Surtain could drop to us. I think Mac Jones could drop. I personally think he'll be taken by San Francisco, but if he's not, he could drop all the way to us, I believe. So,
well, in this particular mock, he didn't get taken by San Fran. They took Fields.
He's not going to get past the Patriots. Talking about Trey Lance. If he falls to you, John, we're going to have to talk.
well,
there goes Darisaw, damn it.
Yeah.
13.
yeah, I don't think Darisaw. I didn't even write. I do have his name down, but I don't. I think that's realistic. I don't think there's any way he's going to be there for us.
There goes Lance, 15
Wow.
to the Patriots. We're
Wow,
on the
we
clock.
got Mac Jones available.
Mac Jones is on the board.
There went all the quarterbacks who are the top 3 linebackers that everyone's talking about
Mhm.
too.
This is an interesting couple of picks here.
Hey, I'll take
Yeah,
a
all
step
3 of them
further.
right after each other. Like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen a couple of guys reporting that Davis Mills could go to 20 to the Bears.
I have too.
You
I've
know,
seen that.
And
Which is
Kuiper
shocking to me. You're talking 6 first-round quarterbacks at that point.
yeah.
Kuiper has us taking Mills at 51.
Hey, Derek, do me a favor and flip it to linebacker so I can see who's left.
Sure thing, boss. I like Jamin Davis. I've heard Zaven Collins. I don't know what to make of that, man. They said he went up to 270, but then it came out that it was unintentional. So now you start to wonder, is like, what's he going to do in the offseason?
Get in shape.
I mean, what's he going to do in every other offseason? I guess I can't really hold that against him because there's a lot going on, but man, to go from 260 to 270 to be an off-ball linebacker, now he's supposed to have decided that he's going to drop the weight. He wants to play rangy and he wants to do a lot of different things, but 270 screams edge to me. And if he's going to put that kind of money intentionally, or that kind of weight intentionally, originally I thought it was because he wanted to move to edge and be a little more dynamic in the pass rush.
I know they got.
If this were reality and I were the Redskins or the football team, if I were Rivera or Marty or Martin, I would really be tempted to trade this pick because somebody wants Mac Jones, but maybe you guys do.
It is hard to argue that.
If the phone is ringing and someone wants to make a legit offer, hell yeah, you have to listen.
You know the phone would be ringing.
I just don't know that Mac Jones at 19 for this team is. I just don't think that's the right call. Doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like the first pick is in, the 19th pick. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and I'm going to give it up to John.
So I took Jamin Davis from Kentucky, and I'll tell you why. I think this is a offensive tackle rich draft. I was very tempted by Tevin Jenkins sitting there, but I just feel like we're going to be able to find there's some really good offensive tackles that we can get outside of the first round. And I'm not sure I believe in any of the linebackers that are going to be there late. And Jamin Davis, I think he's of the guys that we had a chance at. The guys that I thought we had a chance at in the first round were Zaven Collins, JOK, Micah Parsons, possibly, although that was a long shot, and Jamin Davis. I actually had him ranked second behind Micah Parsons in this group. He's from Kentucky. He's got good size, 6'4", 234, ran a 4.4 40, so he's got some speed, and he is a big-time run stopper. He's a very aggressive and a really good tackler, which is something that JOK I'm not so sold on. I think he's a smallish guy. I really like Davis's tackling. He's got really good lateral movement, and he's very disciplined, which I think fits in with what Rivera wants to do. He doesn't go rogue very often. He pretty much follows the plan, and he's also got great hands. So he's a guy that's going to get us some turnovers with picks. And he did only play one season as a starting linebacker. So I guess that's a little bit of a concern, but I just think he screams long-term, super strong linebacker in the middle there that we're going to be able to rely on for a long time. So that was kind of my rationale. And I'll be glad to talk to you about why I did not pick Mac Jones if you want to talk about it. But basically my premise there is we can't afford to miss on a first round quarterback again. And I just think one of the reviews I read of Mac Jones was he doesn't have a striated muscle on his body. He's not a very
except his brain
imposing guy. And I just worry about him getting broken over someone's knee on a sack or just not being able to physically dominate at quarterback like we need somebody to do if we're going to take him in the first round. I'd have no problem taking him. To me, he's kind of like Kyle Trask without the size. He just doesn't have that physicality.
I've seen a lot made about us taking a first round quarterback, and a lot of people talk about Lance. And I start to ask the question, if we're going to take a quarterback that's going to be a project, you then are occupying a first round pick. So now you're not only not getting a first round talent elsewhere, that's just you're benching or you're getting somebody to shelf them. And I start to wonder, why is that worth it? If you're going to do that, you did that on a second or third round guy, not a first round guy. I've been adamantly against Lance since the beginning. It's just not my pick because I don't see what he does that others can't do. I love the pick, just me.
So John, you had this guy ranked higher than JOK?
I wouldn't say higher. I think he's a more physical, kind of old school type linebacker, honestly, which I like. JOK is a speedster. That guy is a freak athlete. But I'm just not sure about his size, concerns me. And he also, his tackling, he's not the most accomplished tackler. And to me, if you're going to pick a linebacker in the first round, he's got to be a complete package. And I feel like Jamin Davis the guy is just a well-rounded, he may not be at the top of every skill category, but overall he's a hell of a linebacker. And so that's why I picked him.
Yeah, I
Hey,
like his size.
John, you mentioned the idea of limited production in college for Davis. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think that element is really going to scare off this coaching staff. If you think about it, a year ago when we drafted Antonio Gibson, the guy only had a resume of 33 carries in college. So, I mean, he's still turned out great for us. So I don't think the production thing is really a concern when it comes to this staff. If there's someone they like, they're going to go grab them and they're going to coach them up and they're going to help them fulfill their potential.
I think it's position dependent too. And I think linebacker is a lot more instinctive position than like playing quarterback or some of the other positions, wide receiver. You rely a lot on your instincts versus necessarily learning over a long period of time. So that I'm not too concerned about it. I just mentioned it because to me, that's really the only question about him is we don't really have a huge, resume to look at or critique.
One thing about really a lot of the supposed first rounders in this draft is that a lot of them are going to come with a lack of experience. A lot of them chose to opt out in 2020.
Yep.
And you even had some second and third round prospects going the same route. So this lack of experience, it's going to, I don't think it's going to play too big this year. The previous year, sure. Next year, sure. This year is much, much different in that regard.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And even if they didn't opt out, like Davis Mills got 5 games because Stanford only played 6.
Right.
Mhm.
So even if you played, you didn't get a full season in most instances. So.
All right. So next selection that we have, I'm going to throw it at you there, Mark. You're up for round 2. Are there any names now that we have taken a linebacker, an off-ball linebacker in the first round? Are there any names you're targeting here? Any particular positions?
Well, this is where I need to mention that I would love to have seen Nick Bolton on this team. He won't be there at 51. And now that we've taken a linebacker at 19, we won't be doing that at 51. But that's a bad man, Mr. Bolton. He looked like a Steeler or like a Legion of Boomer, and he was just blowing people up in the middle of the field. So I will not look at the linebackers. The other obviously 2 big holes on the team are left tackle that we'd like to fill. And tight end is a scary position to me in that we are 1 deep, as John has done a great job at pointing out to us. There's only 1 tight end that I think is likely to fall to us or might even fall to us, and that would be Mr. Fryermuth from Penn State. I'll be watching to see if he's available. The offensive tackles, I've never been a draft for need solely guy. But if I can marry up a prospect to play tackle, maybe not start as a rookie. I don't think we're going to find that guy at 51. But I'll be looking to see if Dylan, is it Raymond? I just completely forgot how to pronounce his name as soon as we started doing this.
Reduns, the
If
kid out of
Dylan
North Dakota
Raymond's
State.
from North Dakota State, who I've sort of come around on. I was kind of down on him.
There goes Bolton to the Broncos right there.
Yeah, he's going to do well. He's going to hurt people.
And Kadarius Toney falls to the Eagles. Now we got to face him twice a year.
He's the next Jalen Rager.
Oh, there's that safety.
The Raiders just snatched Eichenberg. That's a pretty good offensive tackle.
All right. So it looks like Verdun's is still on the board. De'Ami Brown is a wide receiver out of North Carolina. A lot of people aren't really talking about in this class. right up there with Terrace Marshall. You kind of see some of the deeper guys talk. He's gone already, but you see the deeper guys talking about this too, but they're not really mainstream.
They're not mainstream, and I'm not sure that that's the fit for this team this year. We have some rooms are better than others. Our wide receiver room is pretty solid to me, considering that the holes that we do have. I don't know that I'm going to take too long on this. Will you scroll down just a hair for me? I'll tell you somebody that I have been interested in, and I guess he must.
Firemouth is there, Mark. I'm just saying. And Tommy Tremble, who I know other guys have a
Yeah,
man crush
I've
on.
got Fryermuth. I'm very tempted, but there's the safety out of Oregon, Javon Holland, who looks like he may have gone. Is he still
He
there?
is.
Yeah, no, he
He's
went
gone.
at 47 to San Diego.
That's a guy I had my eyes on. I think that's a starter. I think he starts for somebody in the first part of this year. He looks like an NFL player already. I gotta tell you, I'm a little bit torn. I'd like to do something at tight end, but I think, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this on the download, Derek. Hold on a second.
It's all right. Go ahead and announce it.
Oh
You're
no,
fine.
oh no, we're doing this the right way.
Well,
It's FREIERMUTH.
Right. I had to
Wow.
I would have had to cut and paste, man. That's
I think I know.
no,
where-
so we are going to take a guy that I don't think is going to excite a lot of people, but I think is going to be a decent pro. We're going to go with Dylan Radens from North Dakota State.
Good pick.
This is a guy who started, let's see, he's 6'4", 300. I think he'll end up playing more at 310, 315. He is, I don't know anybody who remembers the last pod. I started out down on this kid. And so to give him fairness, he kept showing up higher rated than I would have had him. So the more I looked at him, if you watch some of these clips coming up, the kid finishes plays. He pursues, he see a little bit of a nasty streak, which I kind of like. There's one play about 3 or 4 into this series here where the man is finishing a block 30 yards downfield. He's trailing the play and just blowing somebody up right at the whistle, which I'm kind of a fan. Mr. Radens he's not a classic left tackle. I don't know that he's going to start at left tackle for us anytime soon, maybe not for a year or two. I do think he's going to be a solid addition to that room. He may end up at guard. He kind of looks more like a guard to me than a tackle at this point. But I think he's probably got a chance to play some at right tackle and move up and down. He played 15 games. His second year, 16. He's 16 at left tackle. He's got good strength overall. Some of the points that come up with him are that he's a good solid player. His weaknesses, somebody questioned his practice habits. I only saw that one place, and that may be a little bit of a red flag. But I think you've got a hardworking kid who is going to do well in the locker room and really fills a need. I don't know that I would like to have taken him at 3, but he wasn't going to be there at 3. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
And you don't see him starting this year?
Not at left tackle. I'd like to be wrong on that, but I don't think our left tackle is on the roster right now. I think we're going to be plugging and playing for a year there.
So I think that one thing that you have to consider as well and keep in mind, and I think that this is an encouraging sign for our team. Think about our offensive line last year. We had guys like Schweitzer, we had guys like Lucas that came in and surprised. Even Morgan Moses, to a certain extent, had one of his better years. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to our offensive line coach, John Matsko. So when you think about these developmental guys that might need a year to marinate and learn, I think that we got a lot going for us in terms of the coaching element. And I think a guy like Matsko, who's proven that he can do it with our line last year, can certainly be of benefit to guys like Dylan Reduns.
Yeah, he's a brawler. I'm excited we got him.
All right,
My
guys.
only-
we
Well,
on
I
to
guess
the-
nobody contested that pick because obviously
I
everybody
was
was
about
just
to say,
completely silent.
My only concern is he's coming out of North Dakota State, and I question the quality of pass rushers that he's facing over there on the left-hand side. Other than that,
Correct.
I mean, I like what I see. In that clip, he sure grabbed the guy and rode him completely out of the play. I mean,
Yeah, and I was busy running my mouth and I forgot to see the one play that in particular may have turned me on him, and it went to his attitude, and he just chased the play down and blew somebody up 30 yards downfield, which shouldn't be, I mean, that should be standard fare, but it's not. It was
Right.
hustle play, and I saw a lot of that from the kid. I think he's got a lot of heart.
So, Derek, to address what you just said, are you kidding? I'm not going to object to it. Linebacker and offensive tackle in the first 2 rounds? Hell no.
It was a joke because obviously I knew nobody was going to have any problem. Now, in theory, we've got a starting middle linebacker and we've got a left tackle and a tackle in the second round that likely competes for either position. I personally think, and Mike on the board, who unfortunately was not available to be a part of this pod tonight, Mike we filled in Moses at left tackle for like a game and he balled out, so you wonder if the team starts to look at Moses and look at that $7.5 million cap hit and look at this draft and where we're picking and say, hey, Morgan, you got 3 or 4 more years in your knees, let's move you over to the left side and see what we can do about this thing. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Then you can groom a guy like Reduns. You can groom a guy like Christensen if you go that route. One of these quote unquote lesser tier guys. It's maybe not Christian Darrisaw or Penny Sewell level, but they can get some field experience while Moses is a stopgap at left tackle. I don't know why they don't try that.
So we got guys out there like Walker Little, who's a giant, who might be available down the road today, who hasn't played in a little bit, but he was rated the second best offensive tackle 2 years ago in the whole country. So we've got him. We've got Spencer Brown out there. So we might not be done with linemen. Who knows?
That would be my preference in the 3rd round. Just
Dan,
throwing that. Just throwing
Do you
that
know
out
anything
there.
about this kid?
What's that?
Do you know anything about this kid?
Oh, he's good. I think we got a little bit of value there. I see him going a little bit earlier in the 2nd round. So I like the value, but I think eventually he will be on the right side, not the left. But to John's point, Walker Little, I know that in the podcast where I talked about offensive tackles, I talked primarily about his first year and how he was subject to some bull rushes and wasn't all that good at defending it. But by his 2nd season, he had solved that, and he was one of the best left tackles in the business. So, if Washington actually took Radins in the 2nd and Walker in the 3rd, because we do have an extra 3rd round pick, we'd be set at tackle for many years to come.
Amen, brother.
That's music to my ears. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this pick. But before that, I'm going to throw it to Tom, who's next on the board. And I'm going to act like I don't know who he's going to pick with his 3rd round pick.
Well, let's see who's available.
Who's your target there, Tom?
John, we need your soundbite. Everybody knows my target. My target is Kellen Mond, man. He is a badass quarterback that I would love to have on this team. So if he's available, I'm taking him.
There's Jabril Cox. That's the guy I want to watch. If we don't go linebacker in the 1st round, Cox is a name to watch.
And sorry, Paul, I'm not going to work a deal with you this time because I don't want to risk it.
Paul, you're talking too much, buddy.
Oh, I'm saving it.
There's Mills.
For when the game's on the line, he's going to come through in the clutch.
I'm beginning to think he calls himself the kicker. He comes in when needed, but I'm starting to think he's the designated driver for the rest of us.
So
No, no,
don't forget that we need a
not even
running
close.
back, guys. We need a running back at some point today, I think.
Davis Mills off the board. Pete Werner, another good linebacker, off-ball linebacker off the board. Tremble Frymouth gone. Brevin Jordan gone. Richie Grant gone. I think this is a stretch of talented football players that could all contribute to this team, depending on what happens going into our first pick in the third round. And we haven't even talked about Spencer Brown, still on the board. Stone Forsythe is a guy who's been kind of climbing the ranks. I don't know what you think about that one there, Ken, but his name is seemed to have, I don't know, maybe he's just the flavor of the week, but he's been gaining some momentum.
I don't want to influence anybody here, but Stone is someone that I really, really, really like, and really, really like.
So you've got some really nice wide receivers. You got Amon Ra there. You've got let's see, you've got Michael Carter, who's a really solid running back. Kenneth Gainwell, we talked about in our hidden gem draft. You've got some offensive guys there as well. I know what we're going to do, but
Sermon's another name. So we're
I
going to
like
stop
St.
this,
Brown personally.
and then we'll switch over here. And like we haven't already seen these highlights 4 times, we'll go ahead and play this. Not that one. All right, whatever. We've seen them enough. Talk them up there, Tom. Let's go.
So I'm going with our trend recently. We've hit the ball out of the park in the third round with McLaurin. We've hit the ball out of the third round last year with Antonio Gibson. 2 offensive players that are going to be starters for us for many, many years. We're doing it again this year with Kellen Mond in the third. 44 starts throughout his college career compared to guys like Fields and others that were in their teens for starts. I just, he's 6'3", 217. He's pretty much the same size as Carr. He can put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, before he starts. He can sit behind Fitzmagic and Heineke and learn. But to have him in the third round, knowing we need a quarterback, we need a young quarterback on this team, it's a no-brainer for me. I know that there's a lot of great players available, but right now we've got a tackle, we got a linebacker, both were needs. Quarterback was a need for me, but I did not want to do it in the first round. I don't think he'll be there in the third, but I'm praying that if he is, that would be a great pickup for us.
so I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think Davis, Mond, and Trask all go in the second round because I think this is a quarterback crazy draft.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the real dilemma. If they don't think he's going to be there, do they trade back in the second? Do they go ahead and just pick a quarterback in the second? I think that's going to be the potential drama of the draft for us.
I don't know why Zoom is acting funky. I agree, John. I don't think he's going to be there at 74. I think if we're going to get him, it's going to be at 51, or maybe we get that tackle at 51, package 2 third rounders together, a third of this year and a third next year to move back up into the back end of the second round. Bob talked about it earlier that people were mocking Davis Mills to 20th in the first round. That could be 6 quarterbacks in the first round. So at some point you're going to run out of teams willing to use a day 1 or day 2 pick on a quarterback because you're going to run out of teams that aren't heavily invested in a quarterback. Now, it could go 9 quarterbacks before that happens, but chances are the more quarterbacks they go in the first, obviously that's just more that will push them down. And for whatever reason, they have him ranked 89th. I don't see him getting past maybe 55.
The other reason why I like him is I've been paying attention and listening to him and watching him on different interviews, and he just seems like he's just got a great character. He's a lot more humble than I ever saw from Haskins, or a lot of these other kids. So that bodes well for me and what Rivera wants. So I would be an idiot if I didn't bring up his character. To me, it looks like he's got a really good one.
I told you what turned me on him, Tom, the last time you talked about him, I hadn't spent a lot of time looking at Mond but he got better all 4 years. Every year as a starter, his stats improved. And to me, that's a big statement. I mean, the numbers don't lie when it comes to that. So that's impressive to me.
Yeah, I'm done messing with quarterbacks that haven't played that much.
Well, and I'm going to say it again. This goes back to listening to Marino when he first came out. He was asked about that release that he had, where I mean nobody ever did it better or faster. He brings the ball back, holds it at shoulder level, and it just seems like he doesn't even take it back. It just rifles out from here. I have not seen that more than a couple of times in the last 20 years. When I started looking at Mon's tape, that's all I could see. I see that release. You can barely even see it. It's here and then it snaps out and it's strong. If he can marry that with learning the game and the accuracy, I mean, in highlight bids, he's very accurate. He never seems to miss. But I'm going to keep saying it until he proves to me that he's not a legitimate NFL quarterback. I think he's special. I think that release is special.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike.
All right, we on to the next
We're
one.
going to move on. Next pickup is going to be Paul. And Paul, unfortunately, being on his computer or his phone, it's going to be a little more difficult. So we're going to let this roll. I think I know who he's going to want if the guy's available. So let's let this rock and roll. Where's Mon? Here we go. Pick him. So far, so good. Not a bad draft, if you ask me. I'd be pretty happy with this on day one. Day two with another pick hanging out. Let's go. Nothing. Nobody agrees with that.
Of course I do. I'm just, I thought you were going to share your screen.
So we're on. Oh, we're not. I'm not sharing my screen. I don't trust this guy. Sorry, sleep deprived. So we're gonna go. Now we're up. So he's on the clock. Walker Little is, I believe, the target. Is that right, Paul?
That is correct. If he is there, and I'm quite certain he is.
There he is.
Walker Little out of Stanford. So we got a tackle already. We're gonna double down on the tackles.
Yeah, and here's my thought process with this. I think we've been bitten one too many times over the last 20 plus years with subpar offensive line play.
Yeah.
Go back to our glory days. What was the driving force behind our championships? Our offensive line. You can never be deep enough at the offensive line position. I want to share something with you guys, which I was looking up over the last few days. If you take a look at the last 4 Super Bowl winners, Philadelphia Eagles, not that we like to say that, when they won the Super Bowl, their offensive line was #1 ranked in the National Football League by PFF. The year after, New England was #1 in sack rate allowed, so lowest sack rate allowed against. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Eric Fisher was a Pro Bowl player. Schwartz was a second-team All-Pro player. You go to Tampa Bay from this past season, Tom Brady was pressured on fewer than 25% of his passes in 2020. If you don't invest in your offensive line, you guys know it as well as me, who you have behind center is absolutely irrelevant. Patrick Mahomes became pedestrian this past February when they were missing some key cogs on their offensive line in the Super Bowl. So when we're talking about Walker Little, we're talking about a guy who's big, he's long, he's got that prototypical size for the NFL. He's 6'7". The guy had a solid rookie year. He was co-Pac-12 freshman of the year. He's athletic, he's rangy, he's going to be able to play on the edge well. He's a little bit of an unknown commodity because he hasn't played because of an injury back in 2019. But the fact is this, you rarely get a chance to land a premier left tackle without using a high-end pick for it. If we can use pick number 82 to land a guy like Walker Little, you jump on that opportunity, and I don't care how many solid linemen you have, you can never have enough. It's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, he's huge, man. He's huge and he can play. And like I said, he was the guy that in 2019, he tore his ACL in 2019, but the year before that, he was considered the second or third best offensive tackle in college football. So he definitely can play.
And the other thing is this, if we're looking down the road here, if we're planning on potentially inserting our so-called franchise quarterback into the lineup in 2022, if that's going to be a young guy that maybe we draft, this year or down the road, what better way to set the guy up for success than having a solid O-line? And if we can get two of them that can be with us for the next 10 years or so in this draft, you're setting up that future quarterback for a lot of success. We know all too well that throwing in young guys that we've thrown into our lineup in the past, they've often failed because the fact is they haven't been helped by their offensive line. And I mean, there were other issues that were part of it as well, but subpar offensive line play always has played into some of the struggles that our quarterbacks have had over the years as well.
So it's fair to say that his name is the epitome of an oxymoron because he is not little.
He is in fact not little.
You're not little at all.
Something you didn't bring up, Paul, that this provides contract leverage. We're at some point in time, we're not paying a left tackle right now. We don't have a guy on the roster we're paying left tackle money. You move Morgan Moses over, he has a good season. He only has 2 years left. Now you're renegotiating. You got a guy like Little on the roster behind him. You've got leverage when you're dealing with Morgan Moses or whoever it is that's playing left tackle that's coming to you for that big Trent Williams payday, right? You're not at their mercy anymore. Assuming Little does what we all think he can do, right? And he's showing it in practice and the coaching staff is comfortable with him. But now you've got an insurance policy against that massive contract. You're kind of stonewalling the need to pay big money later down the road, which allows you to put the money into something else that we may need.
Yeah, you mean like 4 starting defensive linemen?
That we're all drafted in the top 10? Yes, exactly like that. Oh, wait, Sweat was what, 21?
Yeah.
26,
Yeah, he was towards the
26.
end.
I knew Ken would know.
barely.
So
One thing I want to,
you guys.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go, Ken.
Just real quick, the one thing about Walker Little that I like is that he actually opted out of 2020. And a regular season, even in college football, can be pretty rugged on an offensive lineman. So he had that ACL tear in 2019. He's had the rest of 2019 and all of 2020, and he's going to have a good part of 2021 to heal from that. So he's going to be fresh. Yeah, he's going to be fresh from that. When you draft a player in the early rounds that had an ACL tear the year before, well, he may not be ready on opening day. That's not going to be the case with Walker Little. Just wanted to bring that up.
So at this point, we've drafted 3 positions of need, 2 offensive linemen, a quarterback, and a linebacker. So I'm curious where you guys are wanting to go, as we get ready for our next pick here. What other areas are we looking at, or are we just purely going after the best athlete available from here on out?
Well, that's going to be up to Bob. Bob, you're next man up on the clock. I'm going to hit draft. You have the 4th round. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have the 4th round. Oh, I see. We haven't put Paul's in at 82 yet. I was like, wait, I'm looking at 82. That's not me. I'm 124.
Well,
Yeah.
if I hit it, then it scoots ahead. I figured I'd wait. I'll
and-
launch it now, and I'll let you start talking about what you're looking for.
And Paul threw me a curveball. I fully expected him to take one of these positions off the board for me and make this a little bit of an easier selection. All along, I've kind of been leaning safety with this 4th pick. Now I'm not so sure I'm leaning safety, although there goes the tight end I was thinking might still be there at number 4, Hunter Long. That's, in my way of thinking, a little bit of a reach to get him outside of, in the top 90, but okay. I'm still kind of thinking safety, although I may throw you a curveball and take a page out of John's book here in a second.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. John's been stumping for a backup running back.
Yeah.
And I've had my eye on a guy that, oddly enough, might be a really cool change of pace. Not so much a backup, but a completely different kind of look. And make some Redskin fans happy. Washington football fans happy. Sorry.
We're still Redskins fans.
There
Yeah, I
goes
know.
Gainwell.
There's
I
no
know.
need to apologize.
So, but safety's where I've been thinking for the last 2 or 3 weeks since we decided who was drafting where. And every single time we've done this, it's been a safety in this round because one of the guys I liked was still sitting there. Although I saw one of the guys I liked go by earlier, which really kind of blew my mind. Divine Diablo out of Virginia Tech actually went in the 3rd round.
Can I just say that Kyle Trask just went 113
Oh, he
to
did,
the
didn't he?
Panthers?
Well,
I just saw that Cisco went.
yeah, I was gonna say
Bob's brokenhearted.
we just made my life a whole lot easier because Cisco just went. So because Cisco was the guy I was leaning on for this particular pick. So with that in mind, I'm actually gonna look at the whole running back concept.
So both Stevenson and Kylan Hill are guys that we talked about in our hidden gem, not to influence you. 'Cause neither of those guys were at the top of my list, but they're both solid running backs.
There's old Chuba.
Yeah, Chuba.
Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba and Puka.
Yeah,
There's
you
a
know
lot of
what's
names.
funny is
There's
I
a lot
actually
of actual names right now, and then not to pivot away from you, Bob, but Cameron Sample, I think that guy might surprise some people as an edge rusher. I don't think he's going to do it as a rookie, but that guy, he's got some of the physical tools. Not to totally pivot on you, but 6'3", 274. He is very wide base, and he can play. His best fit comes in as a 4-3 D end. I'm not saying we take a guy there, but if we had a need at defensive end, that could be a name we could look at.
No. I
Really,
had
John? Ken, really?
this past weekend, I had Sample in one of my articles at Rigos Rag as one who's going to bust.
You
I'll
think
leave it.
so?
Yes, I think so.
interesting.
I could be wrong.
Tell me why.
What's that?
Elaborate.
He's slow. And, you want to have an edge that's going to come off the ball very fast and get in the backfield as quickly as possible. That's not him. And anytime he drops back in coverage, forget it. Just forget it. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, it looks like the pick is in, so I'm going to throw it to you, Bob. Go ahead and announce your pick if you're ready. I'll go ahead and give you some highlights.
I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson out of Oklahoma. Watching this guy on tape, I kind of get flashbacks to one Mr. Riggins, right? He's a bigger dude. He's 6 feet. He's 245. This guy isn't going to kill anybody with his speed, right? He's a 4'6", 40 guy, which is not what you're looking for in your running back, but he's got great feet. More than that, as a college back, he's patient. He waits for things to appear before him, and he goes and finds the hole. And he just manages to find his way through things. And when he needs to put his shoulder down, he's got plenty of muscle to actually go ahead and do that. There
What
was
year
a
is he,
red
Bob?
flag. He did get suspended in 2019 for the Peach Bowl in the first couple of games of he got suspended for the 2019 Peach Bowl and then the first several games of the 2019 season. But when he came back in shape, and he put up, over 660 yards on 101 rushing attempts. He also caught the ball 18 times out of the backfield for 211 yards that year. So he's not purely just, a rusher. He actually has a pair of hands. So if we trade him out on, short yardage downs or something with Gibson, we're not necessarily telegraphing that it's going to be a run. He can catch the ball.
He can, and he also is he's a very good blocker, which is not something you see a lot of with college running backs. He likes to block. He blocks well, and he's kind of a mean guy. I mean, he runs with ill will, is how I would put it. He's not afraid to lower the shoulder and hammer somebody.
That's what I saw on the tape too, John. Was I felt like we used the phrase a lot tonight, but a mean streak, right? The guy really has some bad intent in his heart for the people on the other side of the ball. The other thing I like is Oklahoma tends to produce good running backs.
Yeah, they do.
You know, it's hard to go wrong with a running back out of Oklahoma.
So
Um,
when
Tried to
he
play
came
devil's
back from-
advocate, but old Samaj P. Ryan came
I
out.
was about to say, too bad P. Ryan didn't work out. What year is he, Bob?
he is you know what? I don't even think I paid attention to that. Yeah. You know what? He's actually a senior because he played 2 years at JUCO in California.
Okay.
He's the guy that after he came back from his suspension, that first game back, he had 3 rushing touchdowns in his very first game back.
You know, I just think this guy could be a great short yardage back. He could potentially open up a roster spot, right? Patton then potentially becomes a little bit expendable, and you can go get somebody that's maybe a great special teamer to fill that last running back slot instead of having Patton, who's really kind of dedicated in that short yardage thing. You'd have Gibson, McKissick, Stevenson, and then whoever you want to pick up for.
Well, Lamar Miller, we re-signed Lamar Miller, but there's no guarantee he makes the roster.
Right.
Exactly.
We released Bryce Love, so that
Right.
that experiment is been over now.
Right. Did you catch that last thing he just did? 6'4", 245, and he hurdled a guy in the open field. Dude may not be the fastest thing in the world, but he's an athlete. And I just really kind of like that. So there you go, for what it's worth.
All right.
I like it.
Well, I'm a big fan of bringing guys in late in games who want to put a shoulder into somebody. If you want to finish a game off, that
Yeah.
looks like that kind of guy, right? He's not probably going to carry 25 times for you, but he might carry 12 with 10 of them in the fourth quarter.
That's all you need, though. If he carries for 12, he gets 27 yards and 4 first downs and a
Yep.
touchdown. I mean, we're going to take that.
Yep.
So who can answer me this question? Who led our team in rushing yards in the playoff game against Tampa Bay?
Taylor Heineke.
Heineke.
That's right. So, Bob, I really like your pick. Running back is it's a bigger need than people really want to admit here. The last 2 games of the year, Antonio Gibson, when he wasn't right, he averaged 3.9 yards against the Eagles. He averaged 2.1 against Tampa Bay. We need someone who can consistently take some carries and spell Gibson. And, you know, I think that those two together, your pick of Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, they can give you a little bit of that thunder and lightning element that Rivera used to have a lot of in Carolina as well.
Man, you've been smoking John's peace pipe between picks, haven't you? You were cute. Did John tee you up for that? That was
No, I had that actually in my Kenny Gainwell notes because I really wanted to go with him, but Walker Little was still there. So
check.
All right, so I'm going to submit this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken. No, I'll submit this. You go do your thing because now I get to think about this for a little while.
Okay. One thing about Stevenson with the suspension, that was for marijuana use. He got drug tested. He was caught. And in college, it's a little bit more of a serious offense than in the pros. But in the pros now, marijuana use, from what I remember, seems to be okay now.
Yeah, it's a therapeutic.
They don't. Well, they no longer test for it, which means they won't punish for it.
Well, Trent Williams is looking good, isn't he?
And he'll never get
I was just going to say
suspended
that.
So, leading up to my pick here, I'm looking at what we've got, what we've taken. Obviously, running back, 2 tackles, quarterback, linebacker. I have a couple names I'm really watching now. Monty Rice was one of them, but I'd never expected him to fall that far. I think he can be a weak side linebacker. He can be a coverage guy, especially since we went an off ball. Another name I'm looking at just went off the board, Trey Brown, cornerback out of Oklahoma. I think he can be a contributor in the special teams and he can become a nickel guy. So, Bob, I'm going to make you really happy if my guy's on the board, and I'm going to take Simi Fehoko, the wide receiver out of Stanford.
Can ask if he had gone by yet. I hadn't noticed.
I don't believe he has, and it's a
No.
little bit of a reach because I think he's more got like that late 5th, early 6th round grade, but we don't have a 6th round pick this year.
Well,
So
It's definitely a reach if you don't wait to see who's available.
he'll be there. I
Let's hope-
think he'll be there because I don't think he's even been in the mention.
Tight end, anybody? Tight end?
All
I
right.
don't think there's anybody I like here. We can dig into
So-
it a little bit. Let's play a little war room drama
So
here.
I'm
in the,
talking about, I'm looking right now at, let's see. who
Trey
did I just
McKitty's
see?
not bad.
Yeah.
I saw
Oh.
Cade was up there just a second ago.
Cade's up there too, and I like Cade.
Cade-
When I'm looking at at this pick, because Cade is on my radar, but then I look at Cade and I compare him to what we already have on the roster. And I look at a guy like Curtis Samuel. So we bring in a guy like Simi Fehoko, who is still available and right here at 6'4", 227, ran a 4.39. He's going to bring an element that we don't currently have in the wide receiver room beyond Cam Sims, but he's faster. And I believe he's a little bit more consistent with his hands.
What
Yeah.
about
I just want to point out that Johnson is the guy that had 1,500 yards as a kick returner.
I know.
just
I'm
throwing that
not
out there.
discounting your boy. I like Johnson. I would not be upset with Johnson here. I'm just looking at something that's a little bit different than what we've already got, because
Okay.
we have McLaurin, we have Humphreys in the slot. We just signed Samuel. We have Gibson, who can play on the outside as a playmaker. We have McKissick, who can play outside as a passing threat. Cam Sims made some plays, and he did it almost in spite of his hands. At
Yeah.
times, he was fighting the ball.
No joke.
If we can add a guy like my guy here, Simi Fehoko, I love his name, by the way, and he can be that big play threat that can stretch the vertical across from McLaurin and open up the intermediate beyond just being a deep threat, it changes the dynamic of the offense. That intermediate opens up. Logan Thomas sees some more stuff. Our boy Reyes can call that one, can see some more targets as well, and let that big body work in the interior of the seam.
Hey, Ken didn't just call him. He's the only one. He's the only one who knew who that guy was. So that goes well beyond calling it.
And to go back to something we said last week, all right, something I said last week, because I still like it. With his frame, he could put on another 20 pounds and be a tight end and not give up much of that speed that he's got right now. He could be a completely different kind of animal in the NFL, much like we've seen with, Gronkowski's a completely different type of a guy. Reed was a completely different type of a guy. On his day, uncoverable. And I could totally see this kid putting on 20 pounds and playing at 247, 250 and being that brilliant tight end. Not first year, not as a rookie, but by his second year, sure, absolutely.
See, this is where I really want to know where we stand with Harmon and where his health is, because when you think about Harmon and you think about Cam Sims, we've got two guys that have size, and then our tight ends got size. So if Harmon isn't healthy, then yeah, I think this is probably a good pick. But if he is healthy, I don't know if we need him.
The thing about Harmon, and I don't know if you guys have had this cross your mind, we all really like Harmon because we saw what he did a year and a half ago at the end of the season before he got hurt. But we got to remember that Rivera and company, they're not tied to him in any way. And we've seen them trim this roster pretty significantly over the last few months of guys that they didn't bring in and they're not wed to. So I'm not saying Harmon's not as good as we saw him be. And I hope he gets a chance to show it, but I would just remind us that he's not one of their guys. And so they may not hold him in as high esteem as we do.
John, it's a great point, and I see exactly where you're coming from. He has shown that he has gotten rid of people that are on the bubble, so to speak, like the other guy Foster and all those guys. But my opinion, if he were questionable on health, he probably would have gotten rid of him already. So
I don't know the parameters of that, because I don't think you can outright release somebody who's on IR.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where was Bryce Love?
I think Love was activated.
He was on super duper IR. I think that's
Yeah.
different.
Double secret IR.
Well, he
Double
was
secret.
he was on IR, and we quote unquote brought him back, and he hit that 21-day window, and then we never activated him, so he went on to the long-term IR and he was waived with an injury. Well, he wasn't even waived with an injury designation, was he?
And he was just waived.
He was just waived. So then that might be different. Harmon's coming off an ACL and Love's coming off a nagging.
I gotta
I
tell you, I
just-
think
I
that's
just-
probably it.
Yeah, granted, it's a YouTube highlight package, but I just love the way this kid plays.
He
Well, that's
does.
what
He
I was just
finishes-
gonna
yeah.
say, Bob. At this point in the draft, I think I might be standing on the table for this kid. This isn't, we're seeing a lot of the deep threat stuff. I see a big, strong-bodied football player who
Not afraid to
can-
go over the middle, is he?
who can run, who has really good body control. I mean, he's made some challenge catches. The hand-eye thing is there. I don't see any downside to a guy this late in the draft with that kind of size in the red zone, moving the chains. Plus, he's a deep threat. You can't just jump him. You gotta
So-
respect his speed. too.
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out why this guy's rated this low.
I am
I
too.
don't get it.
Well,
So for those of you watching, sorry not to cut you off, Tom. This play, we talked about it before, but this play
Yeah.
right here turned me on to him, and you'll watch him finish. Bam! Like
Oh.
that's
yeah.
it every play with him. I like that. That excites me as much as the catch and run does. Is him putting his shoulder down and running over somebody that weighs 20 pounds less than he does. So
I
fifth
really
round
like this
pick.
kid.
wide receiver, and he looks like he can contribute beyond just special teams. He can be an offensive weapon.
And I don't think this is a reach at this pick at all, Derek.
We've got a pretty exciting wide receiver group. You know, we got McLaurin, we got Samuel, we've got Kelvin Harmon coming back. We've got Cam Sims, who, despite our criticism of him, he showed something towards the end of last year. We've got Adam Humphries, who I think we forget about. And then we've got our scrubs are Steven Sims and AGG, who I don't know if they're ready to write off AGG yet, but I don't think I am. So we could have some serious wide receiver talent.
I think Steven Sims is gone.
Is he?
I think he
They
is.
cut Steven Sims?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, they let go of one of the Sims. So if Cam's still there, Steven must be
Okay,
gone.
all right.
Can you pull up that list again, Derek? Because this is my only input for this pick. So I'm not saying that. What's his name? Kihoko
Fehoko.
is a
With an
bad
F.
pick, but go back to who's available because I've seen this guy and I really like him. I think he's going to be one to follow in the league.
Cade Johnson's available.
Anyway, he's out of Texas. The safety there. His name is escaping me, but I saw him and
Caden Stearns, maybe?
Yes.
yeah. So you're concentrating on wide receivers here, not. Oh, there he is, right there, Caden Stearns.
So the other guy that's intriguing is that Michael
like him.
Strawn guy. That's our friend from the Bahamas, I believe, the giant wide receiver from the Bahamas. He's also there. That would be another guy to look at if we weren't going with Fehoko. But I like that pick.
I like it too.
I think one thing we need to remember too, think about where we are in the draft. We're like down into day 3 at this point. And if there's one thing that I've learned from watching the draft, I mean, I used to remember here in Canada, when I was a kid, we'd get like 2 hours of the draft on television. So I'd maybe get to pick 11 or 12 and then they'd cut off our coverage. If there's one thing I've realized from watching the draft all these years is that my favorite team is not necessarily always going to address positions of need just because I, as a fan, feel it's a position of need. We're into day 3 here. They're going to be adding guys, regardless of position, that they think could be a weapon down the road. You're essentially stockpiling talent and you're filling out your depth chart at this point. I don't know how much position plays into it.
That and you're hoping to strike gold too. I mean,
That's
you're
right.
looking for high ceilings.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
And-
picking at this point, they're picking football players.
And one thing that is positive about our team, and it's the first time that we can say this in quite some time, we're in a pretty nice position. there aren't an enormous amount of positions that we can say that we have to thrust one of these draft picks into a starting role for. Yeah, sure, there's a few, but there's not 8 or 9 of them like there may have been in the past,
Well
right? We
said.
have the luxury of just adding guys at this stage in the game that we think might be able to help us down the road.
That's one of the reasons why I went with a running back at 4 instead of a safety at 4. I'm making an assumption that Collins is going to come back. Curl showed he can play. Curl showed he belongs at this level last season. I'm not saying we couldn't upgrade from him. I'm not sure we can upgrade from him in the 4th round, though. And as John has stumped for at least 3 weeks now, we're a whole lot thinner at running back than we really think we are. Because when Gibson gets hurt, the world kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and McKissick's carrying the ball 20 times, and then Barber's getting, yeah.
And McKissick's not don't get me wrong. I loved McKissick. In fact, I picked McKissick up and I plugged him into my fantasy football team this last year, and he actually won a game for me. But he didn't win a game for me carrying the ball from scrimmage. He won a game for me catching the ball 8 times out of the backfield and putting up 150 yards and 2 touchdowns that way.
Right.
That's his game. So once he comes into the game, we're not thinking, the defense is no longer thinking about the handoff. They're thinking about the pass now. And I think we need a guy that we're willing to hand the ball to in the backfield on a regular basis.
Plus, we've lost more than P. Ryan this offseason.
What?
Who else did we lose?
Bryce Love is gone.
Bryce Love is gone.
We hardly knew you.
I know, but isn't Barber still here?
Yeah. Barber is still here, yes. But he's got 1 year left on his deal?
1 year left. We've got Lamar Miller, who hasn't played a game in 2 years.
That's right. We picked up
barely.
Lamar Miller.
So and both of those guys are getting close to 30 years old. So, and the lifespan of a running back doesn't go much further than that, unless you're Adrian Peterson, which he's kind of the exception to the rule.
He's also a free agent.
Freak of nature is what he is.
Yeah, he is. Oh, there goes Felipe Franks. There goes to the Eagles. There's my sleeper quarterback pick tonight.
He's good too, man.
All right, so
for the Eagles. By the way,
something a little different, and we're hitting almost an hour here. So if we want to make a couple quickie pickies here, we figured we'd kind of group think this one a little bit. I took a wide receiver. According to this draft log board, it looks like our top needs now are safety, cornerback, interior O-line, and tight end. We have not taken a tight end yet.
Yeah, we're not going to find a contributor at this late either.
No.
I don't think we're going to find a safety contributor. If I can throw a name out there, we talked a little bit. Tay Gowan, he's raw. He's long. He's kind of rangy. His cornerback out of UCF. I talked about him a little bit on one of the other pods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Ken wasn't on that one. Ken, I'm kind of interested in hearing on what you think of Tay Gowan and what your file is on him.
I think a late round flyer is a good thing, but when you get to the 7th round, there's generally 15 or 20 guys. You say, I see Austin Watkins there. I think he's a 4th rounder.
Michael Strawn is sitting there.
Yeah, Austin Watkins. Sheesh, I can't believe he's still available. But as far as Tay is concerned, I think you get decent value here. Is he a practice squad guy? Is he someone who makes the roster? Difficult to say, but he'll have to play special teams just to make the team his first year.
What's his size?
What cinder
Ford.
blocks got tied to Paris Ford's feet, and why did he go from being a 3rd round pick to now an undrafted free agent? I don't understand that.
Because he's extremely slow. He takes poor angles like you wouldn't believe. I watched a game, ACC game this past year, and I can't tell you, it just felt like Bakari Rambo all over again.
Well,
Tell you
so
what, he's
then let me
light
ask
too,
you
man.
this. Sorry,
6
Bob,
foot,
go ahead.
190.
Well, let me ask you this then, Ken, just to pick your brain a little bit. All of this happened after the season ended. Like, we saw the tape during the season. Why did it wait until after the season ended for this to happen?
Because he had a really good 2019. I'll say that. But he had a good defensive backfield he was with. And so it hid some of his deficiencies. But, you know, this past year, I don't know if he took too many chances or what. But I just can't explain it.
So
Can we look at some of the offensive linemen that are still on the board? Because this is usually a round where you might be able to find some guys that can actually, contribute down the
Oh, there's
line.
Morrissey.
Jimmy
Wow.
Morrissey.
Yeah.
As far as a safety at this point, you're just looking for a special teams guy. But you know what? Jeremy Reeves, the second half of the season, played
Played pretty
extremely well.
Yes, he did.
And I'm starting to think maybe the team is comfortable with him starting at free safety next year, this coming year.
I don't disagree with that. I think he fits that mold of what most of this team is.
Mhm.
They're comfortable with him playing, but they absolutely know that if they have the opportunity to upgrade, then they're comfortable doing that also.
Well, we hit the ball out of the
Yeah.
park getting Reeves and Curl
Curl.
last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
and what they did with Collins going down. I mean, Curl was a 7th round pick. I mean,
Can we bring up tight ends again?
Tight ends.
You know what? I'm a UVA guy. I think we all know that. But let me tell you about Tony Poljan. He was a quarterback for a couple of years at Central Michigan. Very good. He goes about 6'7", but he's bulked up to 265. And
He's added 40 pounds.
Yep. He's this offseason, he's bulked up to 265. And that's
If we were to pick him up, we would have 3 defensive ends playing tight end. I'm just saying.
Okay, jokes aside, and homerism aside, he was a good quarterback, but he wanted to try tight end. The team let him do that. He showed some potential, and then he chose to go his last year to UVA, and he had a pretty good season at tight end. So he's just getting started, and we have a pretty good tight ends coach. I really think Poljan is a steal here in the 7th round. That's just one man's opinion.
So Ken has voted for Paul Jean here, and he likes Austin Watkins, right?
Yeah, he's a 4th rounder, but we've already got Simi, so I think you would be just adding too much there. Let somebody else get him. We do have 2 picks in the 7th round, so let's see if he's there after.
So I just want to mention Strawn again. Strawn is the guy from Freeport, Bahamas, who
This guy
is
right here, yeah.
6'5", 228. And he could be a tight end in the NFL.
Another defensive end.
Yeah, but he's got 4.49 speed or 4.46.
As
40
Montez
speed.
Sweat playing wide receiver.
Right. So he's a serious athlete, and I believe he's also the track star at West Virginia at Charleston, where he went to college.
The wide receiver I saw that on there is Jax Milne of BYU. The guy that caught out of Zach Wilson's passes is Dax. He's pretty good. I would have put him. Yeah.
What does he do on special teams?
He won't offer much on special teams, but as a receiver, long-term potential, I see him more as a 5th rounder. But considering what else is at there right now, I wouldn't take him, especially with Watkins there.
So I don't know about you guys, but I I like the tight end here a little bit. I'm gonna go with Ken on the tight end because we have not addressed that.
And I'll
That's
tell
an
you
option.
why I agree is it's the right fit. We need a blocking tight end. We have a guy who can catch. This is a guy who looks like he can fill in, help seal the edge on the other side, and maybe sneak out like Don Warren once in a while and surprise somebody.
There's
Bob,
no
Paul,
questioning his
what do you think?
intelligence. We know he's a smart kid, right?
Yeah, because he went to UVA.
Right.
Go to my picks there.
We have not gone tight end yet.
I know, but
Guys, we're about to pull a Vikings here. We gotta pick one.
I'm
Yeah.
good with Poljan. I was
Fine.
leaning cornerback, but I agree with everybody in the comments they made about Poljan. So
Well, we're up again. So
I agree
And-
with everybody out there as well. Like all these are fantastic suggestions. I just want to throw one other thing out there, just something to consider. There's a guy still sitting out there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, who was the guy who had the second most interceptions in the NCAA this past season, and that's Trey Norwood. He gives you a little bit of versatility on the back end. He can play corner. He can play a little bit of safety. He does contribute on
He-
special teams.
there he is.
It would be something to consider as well. He doesn't have the size that you ideally want, but he's quite athletic. He gives you that versatility that I think this coaching staff covets. And the fact is, he was a playmaker this past year. So, I mean, that's just another name to throw out there and consider. And that's not to say that any other name being suggested is not good. I think they're all fantastic.
if we're not going interior offensive line, I think cornerback is a great pick here. We've lost Moreau. So that leaves us with Moreland and the two starters. So we need some depth.
Yeah, we've got Greg Stroman coming back from IR.
Yeah, Stroman and Moreland are back up to our two
And-
starters.
Stroman brings a special
Williams
teams
is fuller.
presence too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always in favor of depth at cornerback. I really liked. Is he gone?
Who?
Oh no, he's still there. Morrissey is still there. So, yeah.
Interior line. I'm
Yeah.
not that familiar with Morrissey. I wouldn't mind taking an interior lineman here, a flyer on somebody on the. We have
good.
Schweitzer. We drafted Martin. We drafted Ishmael. We had above average production from, or above expectation production from our offensive line. And those guys had, Schweitzer contributed, but Martin and Ishmael did not. And I think they had an opportunity to. So you start to wonder if they're going to be able to do it. So
You have a bunch of guys here that you look for, the rating is from 279 to 372, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, you're in undrafted free agent territory at this point.
Right. So
know,
that's, I guess, that's the other thing is the cost versus value. Like, could you take a corner, take Norwood here, and then get one of these guys, the UDFA?
Yeah. Ken, do you know? Can you say anything about Morrissey? Because I've heard good things about him. But do you have any?
Yeah,
tidbits about him?
I've heard good things as well. I really didn't spend a lot of time looking at him. Guys that are pretty much considered undrafted free agents, I'll spend maybe 10, 15 minutes looking at them, and that's about it. I think that I did look at him back sometime in February, and I might have spent 30 minutes looking, but I came away like, okay, he's a project. They can get on the undrafted free agent, stash him on the practice squad, see what he has. That's about what I remember.
Well,
So-
you guys saying that the odds that he'll be available as an undrafted free agent is a good
Yeah, pretty
good
certain.
point. I think to Paul's point, Trey Norwood is a great pick here.
So then we can run with that. We can draft Norwood here, take a corner, and then kind of pick a couple names. I have a name that I like as an undrafted free agent. Actually, you know what? He might be gone. No, he's not gone. One of them's not gone. Nope, both of them are not gone. So what we'll do is we'll draft him here. I'm going to go ahead and now that we've concluded the draft, we can rename it a little bit, talk for a second. We'll stop it, and then we'll boost up another podcast for the overtime. We can break it down a little bit with the roster talk how it's gonna fit. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Go
so
for it.
make that pick and go to my picks.
If I do Trey Norwood, draft it, my picks, and there you
Go
go.
that, man. We freaking hit the ball out of the park, gentlemen.
I want to see if Jermaine Martin is still out there, just out of curiosity.
Oh, Jermaine Martin is definitely still out there. No, he's not. Whoa. See, he doesn't show up here.
Well, you got it on cornerback.
Oh, that's why. Why didn't you tell me, John? Come on.
He just did.
Get rid of that. Unclick this. No, stop. And now, oh, it ended. Martin was still there.
Oh,
Yeah,
so we won't be able to see who's still available once we end this.
Yeah, they don't like us. They kicked us out.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this. We're going to go by the notion that Martin is still there because he generally is when I've done this, because don't worry, John, I have drafted him in like 60% of the drafts mocks that I've done. So I'm going to save this. Sorry. Well,
So for our podcast audio listeners, to recap, here's who we picked. With the 19th pick, we took Jamin Davis at linebacker. At 51, we took Dylan Redunds, offensive tackle from North Dakota State. With the 74th pick, we picked Kellen Mond, quarterback from Texas A&M. At 82, we picked Walker Little, offensive tackle from Stanford. 124, we took Ramondre Stevenson, running back from Oklahoma. 163, we took Simi Fehoko, wide receiver from Stanford. From, 244, we picked Tony Poljon, tight end from Virginia. And with our final 7th round pick at 246, we took Trey Norwood, cornerback from Oklahoma.
And by the way, that's an A- report card.
You think so?
Yeah.
not for us. That's an A+. So I have updated everybody in the group, in the chat. We'll go ahead and post this in the comments along with the link to all the highlight videos. I will cut this podcast out and then we'll launch a new one over time. We'll break it down, see how it looks with our current roster, and maybe we can talk a little bit longer. Cool.
Well done, gentlemen.
Good job, guys.